and do some cutting on the floor. So you might have to accept that. Is that right?
You're right, mate.
Awesome. How you going?
Very well, very well. How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. It was a big weekend, probably the biggest I've had in a while. So, yeah, back on the mats, ready to go. You've been training this morning?
I was meant to train this morning, but no, I didn't train this morning. I opted to do some recovery and sleep.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, let's might as well dive straight into it. So, I suppose let us know a little bit about yourself and you know where you're training, all that kind of thing, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I've been training since like late 2009. Black belt, 2020, I think it was, or 2021. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm about to get my first degree on my black belt this year. So I own an academy with my wife in North Brisbane, Balance Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. We've been going, this is our third year now, so things are going very well. It was scary to start, as you know how scary that is to own an academy and to have to build it up from literally nothing.
Yep.
So we've got a pretty strong membership base now. We've done pretty well in those 3 years, close to 300 members now, so we're doing well, quite a good sized academy. So things are going well, and the journey as a coach is the one that I'm fully riding now. It's become an obsession of mine now, just the drive to be a better coach, to be an actual coach. I think that's the biggest step, going from teaching moves, handing out technique cards, as I've been saying the last 6 months, like Pokemon cards, handing out techniques every time you rock up, to now I'm actually trying to be a coach, which is like a whole different ball game.
Yeah, cool. Well, that 2009, I walked into my first academy early 2009, January 2009. So yeah, it's always good to hear that, especially that I've still got a little way to go before the black belt, but that's all good. So you've started obviously working with the CLA, ED-CLA approach. What got you into that?
It's a long story, Sam. Yeah, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to make a long story medium, but
we got enough time, so.
I obviously coming up, it was pretty much all IP, my whole time learning. Occasionally a coach would throw in some positional sparring with the goal of maybe helping us remember or just get a little bit of time in the position we just worked in. This is my third year full-time coaching now. As I went through, it initially started with, people would always come up and they'd be like, this academy is amazing. I love this place. The people are great. The jiu-jitsu is kind of fun. I'm so welcome. The culture's amazing. But I would rarely hear like, oh, I'm learning, like the coaching, I'm learning heaps, right? I'm really learning stuff. I would really rarely ever get that feedback. I'm a pretty good communicator without tooting my own horn. And I knew a lot of jiu-jitsu. I could teach it pretty well. I could give you all the steps, right? But that missing link was people. It just didn't feel like they would occasionally be able to hit some moves and whatnot. It kind of looked like jiu-jitsu, but we were kind of just out here doing moves. So then I started to okay, I need to get better, because they're obviously not picking things up that way that I want them to pick it up. So I started doing some research and come across obviously some of the ecological stuff online, looking at some of Greg's stuff and some of Kit Dale's stuff. He was always demonized when I was coming up as the guy who didn't drill, who didn't believe in drilling. So looked at some of his stuff, and then that's when the rabbit hole starts, right? That's where you start to, okay, like there's a different way here. And so anyway, I kind of started dipping my toes in a little bit here and there. Just I'd try a little game out here, and like that was kind of cool. But then Friday mornings, I would kind of try to keep it a little bit more gamified, and that was always the relatively positive response. But I was always a little bit scared to make the jump, because this is what we've been taught the whole time, right? This is how I was taught. So this is like if you went away from that, am I doing a disservice to the members and the paying members and the people I have under me? But as I kept going and going, it just more and more just it didn't seem effective to me. And I kind of had a crisis as a coach. I was what I would do is I would like spend a few months researching techniques or a position, and then I would spend a few weeks or months then using it in the room myself, so I kind of understood it. And then I was like, okay, now it's time to bring it to the people because I have a better understanding of it. Mm-hmm. I remember getting to the academy one day. I was like, am I going to do this forever? Is this all this is going to be forever into infinity and beyond? I'll just on this rat wheel consistently. Here's a new technique for you. Here's another one. Here's another one. And I was like, where does this end? And are they truly learning anything? Am I truly learning anything? And anyway, that was like I was stuck in that method of thinking. Anyway, as I kept researching this ecological thing and watching and reading all this stuff, one of the coaches that I still train under, Coach Dan Higgins, he's like super well known in Brisbane, in Australia, as a martial artist, and he's got a bunch of black belts under him. He only trains a few of us black belts and brown belts out of his garage at 4:30 a.m. A few times a week. And it's a tough room, bunch of tough blokes in there. Anyway, we come in there, and I slowly, as I kept researching, I started to notice that Coach uses the ecological approach. It's not as blatant. You know what I mean? He's not going to say this game is this or this game is that. But you can see through his method that it was the ecological approach, and that's why he has such a tough room. Where white belts in that room, because there's a few guys who are white belts or purple belts. They're tough. Like, it's not just a product of the room; it's because of the way they're learning. And honestly, it was him who gave me the balls just to be like late last year. I was like, nah, fuck it. We're just going to do it for better or worse. As a coach, you got to stick to your convictions, right? Like, you got to stick to what you believe is going to be best for your students and your members. And if you're a coach that gives a fuck, then that's half the battle. Having a coach who cares truly less about himself and more about the students. So late last year, we just went full ecological, mostly the constraint-led approach, and the results have been pretty staggering. They've been pretty staggering, and here we are now.
Yeah, sweet. So it seems like the journey has been quite long, and I'd say, I mean, you've been coaching for a while. Previous to owning your own academy, you've obviously been training for 15 years. Is that did you find that it was hard within yourself to sort of switch over to this new thing? I mean, you talked about Dan giving you and Dan is obviously very well known in the Brisbane grappling scene, and we've actually got someone that trains with us that he's a purple belt who was a blue belt underneath Dan. And he's a savage as well. So really, really knowledgeable, hyper knowledgeable. It's awesome having him on. So that sort of that swap over from sort of IP to CLA, I think the first time I sort of noticed that you were looking into it was the Kit Dale seminar. How much had you sort of dabbled with your own training prior to that?
Little bits and pieces.
Okay.
Little bits and pieces. It was still not necessarily testing and measuring, because there was no marker that I had where it was if I get to this point of whatever class enjoyment or progress, then I'll make the switch. It was just I just wanted to see what happens, see how it goes. And I would mostly try to do that kind of stuff on a Friday morning class. We have a Friday 6 a.m. class, and I would chuck things in mostly in that class there. So at that point, when I went to the Kit Dale seminar, I went there purely just because I wanted to pick his brain and ask him questions about his approach. Did you get much out of it? Not really. I think that wasn't due to a lack of knowledge on Kit's part. I think it was just he was very much more in the process of trying to communicate his new product that he just released at the time, which is fair enough. And I didn't quite get the time to ask him the questions that I wanted to ask him. But you could see, and throughout his session was mostly, we spent a whole 2 hours in the Russian arm or the Russian 2-on-1 position, and it was mostly just figure out what you can do from that spot, which, look, that's fine as an approach, but he's constrained. He has 2 hours and that's it. So he has 2 hours to try to make an impact, and then he's going to go to the next gym that he's doing a seminar at. So I understand that. I didn't get to ask him too many questions, but there was enough there for me to be like, I feel like we're on the right track here.
Yeah. I think seminars are, when you're down this track, you start realising, they're so constrained that there's only so much that, I've said a couple of times in a couple of interviews that I'm sure I'll cringe at in a couple of years, but, going to the John Danaher seminar and, getting shown a sequence of events, I can't remember the sequence. Like, I can kind of remember a little bit of a little bit of a little bit, but, if there was I kind of look at it now that if I had put myself in these situations and then tested out, how to get out a number of times, that would have been, would have had the same benefits. Yeah. So, here's something that's come up. I don't know if you're on the Discord, but a couple of questions that have come up recently about kind of how schools are advertising and that sort of thing. You mentioned you got 300 students. That's fucking amazing, man. Like that really is good. Testament, obviously, to your culture, all that. Is that mostly like what would the ratio be, kids v adults?
Yeah, I've got like over 100 of each. It's like it dips, and obviously it's sliding doors, you know how it is, but it's a pretty good 50-50 split.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's really good then. Yeah, awesome. And did you find when you it's difficult because it sounds like you threw yourself into it at the end of last year, which is kind of the downturn of new people, and then January is the upturn of new people. But have you put more people on this year, and have you found retention better? We've always had relatively good retention. Mm-hmm. We have had, a bunch of like new people sign up. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest change is their engagement levels in a class. So we have like a beginners program and then like an all levels program. And the beginners is we just spend 8 weeks. It was 12, now it's 8, like in a given position, and we'll just give you the basics of that position. And then the goal is to transition you to the all levels class. What we're getting more of now is people can start in an all levels class and they're sticking in that all levels class. Whereas before there was a big hesitancy to go from beginners class to the all levels because it felt like a bit of a big jump. But now, though both of those classes they're taught very similar, they're basically taught the same now. I only teach some of the beginners classes, but I have a blue belt and a purple belt who teach the beginners program, but they're using the same method I'm using, or they're trying to, right? But we're seeing more transfer from the beginners guys going into all levels classes because there's less thinking required, right? There's less of the internal focus of like, what step would I have to do? I don't know what this thing is. It's all very, very simplified now. That's the biggest change. Yeah, cool. I will get back to how you structure your classes, but I think there's something that, because I'm a digital marketer by trade, there's a few things and going as in-depth or, as broad as you want to go. But what type of marketing do you do to get people in, and have you sort of updated your messaging at all?
No. The biggest, at least from my perspective, is for us is we try to remove the fear element. Right, like someone wants to go and try Jiu Jitsu. I think in their head they have this picture of like the dingy little like garage gym, basically my coach's gym, where you go. There's a bunch of savages there. They're going to beat you up. It's a war, a battle of attrition. Only the strong will survive. All that stuff. So our goal from the beginning is just try to take all the fear out of it. Try to being a beginner is a good thing. Like, we're the place that you can come to be a beginner. That's what we do. We love to help you and nurture you along. It's a safe space. That's been our message from day one, and nothing has changed about that. And I think we've been very fortunate, my wife and I, to have the right people come at the right time. That's honestly how we've gotten to where we are, the community and the culture. That's what's driven the growth. The good thing is now that I feel confident that we have the right product to match that community and that culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah, awesome. All right, well, I'll shift back off that. Oh, actually, I will stay on that. So do you advertise on Facebook, Google, all that kind of thing?
Just Google and Facebook.
Yep.
And that's it. Honestly, we've spent, I might be wrong, but in the 3 years, I'm sure we've spent less than $1,000 on marketing.
Right.
It's just been the random Facebook ad, random Instagram ad, and then the random, we'll do some Google stuff as well, but Google's pretty expensive. Like it's pretty expensive to spend that money. So we're just lucky that's what I mean by luck. It's just, if you can get the right culture and the right community in there, if they feel part of something bigger than themselves, without it being a cult, because you know how quickly things can get a bit weird. The community can build itself, and I think what we try to do is we talk about it all the time, Steph and I, my wife. We're trying to be a lighthouse in terms of, like, people can come to us, they can learn some jiu-jitsu, feel good. If they float away, if they want to feel like they want to get back to that feeling, like that accepted feeling, that feeling of growing and being part of a community, they can see that lighthouse. They're always going to know where to come back to. So we've had plenty of people come and, you know, they initially come for jiu-jitsu, but they stay for community, they stay for culture, they stay for feeling seen and heard. And those are the things that keep drawing people back. But it's also those things that will get them, like, talking to their friends, right? Like, oh man, you should come down, you should come try it out. That's what we've got plenty of mothers, you know, new mums, plenty of females who train. A very large part of our group is female.
Wow.
There's always multiple females on the mat training, or we don't have a women's only class. We all train together, and that just speaks to the community and the safety of the room. And those are the pillars of which we built our academy on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you've got that culture thing down. Do you have any sort of recommendations, or do you read anything about that, or resource wise, or is it just years?
Look, not really, Sam. I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a very religious household, and I worked for a church as a teenager and a young adult, and then I became an atheist. That's a whole nother story we'd need multiple hours to go into. But in terms of, like, community building, making people feel welcome, those are pretty big strengths of mine and my wife. And then again, honestly, we just attracted the right people at the right time. Got incredibly fortunate that those people had this similar thinking, and that has spread throughout the group, if that makes sense. I can only put it down to that. One big thing, one big key, and not enough academies or places do it, but the power in, I know Kabir, I've been messaging him a little bit lately. He put a story up before on the power of remembering someone's name, yes. Being able to say someone's name. That is something that I'm humongous at, and I tell people this all the time. I only have 2 black belt skills. One of my black belt skills is I'm amazing at recognizing if someone's gotten a haircut, and the other one is remembering people's names. Yeah, and right. So anyone who walks in the door, it's always like, hey, Aaron, how are you? Sammy, how you going? That little thing for someone to walk in the door and to feel seen and heard goes a million miles. They're better than any training program you have, better than any, like, equipment, any mat setup, any fancy whiz bang, whatever. That feeling of being seen and heard, that'll keep someone coming through the door regardless. So that's the biggest thing, I think.
That's awesome, man. It's one of those things that I learned early on in, you know, my sales, sort of sales psychology and that sort of thing. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty terrible at it. Everyone is bro or girl to me.
Yeah.
But I'm too old for that now. and I think you're right. Remembering names. The other one that I always liked was thanking people. So
yep.
People like to be thanked. So
yep.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll get off that marketing culture train, because it sounds like you got something awesome there. Let us know a bit about your timetable structure and then how you structure your lessons.
Yeah, look, I think that's the ever changing, ever morphing thing about using this approach. I think it's always changing a little bit. For me, like, I read a fair bit of stuff, and probably not as much in terms of textbooks as you have, Sammy, but
I'm struggling. I'm struggling at the moment, but yep.
I like variability in the room, variability in also how the class is structured, in terms of who's teaching the classes. as well. So I have a few guest, like a purple belt, a couple of purple belts, brown belt and black belt, who also teach classes at our academy. We don't have them on a set schedule. It's just like most nights I teach, but there could be another coach teaching, but just want variability in the room. So people come in not like, oh, it's Tuesday, Coach X is teaching. He probably will run class like this, because that they get set in a habit, or they get set in a routine. So they walk in the room, oh, Coach Gino's teaching. Okay, we might be doing this. I think that feeling of like newness, I know it's not necessarily novelty, but I think like not being set in set patterns creates a better learning environment. Okay. So in terms of like my classes, look, what I do is I've tended to kind of split things up in 6-week blocks. 2 weeks is guard, 2 weeks is pins, and then 2 weeks will be some submissions sprinkled in there. And then depending what week we're currently are in a guard week this week, so I'll get them in. We always line up not in belt order. We're in belt order if we're wearing the gi, and then in whatever order if we're in no gi. We do bow in, and it's not bowing to a sensei or a master. It's just like respect to the room, respect to the mats, but it also gets everyone, like gets their attention. We're about to start. And then I'll start with a very, very easy game that's easy for everyone to understand based on what we're doing. Quite often, if it's guard week, I'll do a variation of dirty feet, or, bottom player. You just got to try to get your feet hooked on the inside of your partner's knees, or try to get your two soles of your feet on your partner. And then the top person, obviously, don't allow that connection. Try to get to the line of the knees. Just a variation of that a couple of times around, and then I'll just build off them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so you've got like a 2-week turnaround. How do you find that with?
Still playing with it, but in terms of, there's always I'm not sure what the term of phrase is, but there will be a large element of recall to the previous week's things in those 2 weeks. So like interleaving, that's the word. Yeah, that is strong element. So for example, last week we spent a lot of time just playing with a side triangle and getting there from like a teabag Kimura position. So this week we're doing guard passing, and we're going to do we're going to work from a headquarters position. We'll do that for a chunk of time, and then we'll come back and I'll start them in north-south with the goal of like isolating the elbow, and then potentially working towards the side triangle from the north-south position, trying to like see if they can make that connection on their own. If they don't, so be it. But we'll just see if we can get them to make that connection based on the information that they have from the previous 2 weeks, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sounds like you use quite a bit of sort of IP language still, and variations on it, the teabag Kimura,
and for myself, in terms of when I program it, I do.
Yep.
In terms of my language in the room, much less so.
Yep. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. So, how did you find that as an evolution? You trying to, because I know from my perspective, it was like a big aha moment, and then trying to, switch over. I think that there is benefit in having both language involved, just to be accessible to both communities. Yeah. How have you found that work for you?
Look, I personally don't mind. I think like IP language and eco language, all this stuff, I think sometimes it could just like you're getting a bit too militant with it. I don't see the harm in someone understanding. If one of my students was to go to another room, I would like them to have some frame of reference. If a coach is like, oh, I want you to start on the De La Riva position, for them to be like, oh, that's when we hook our leg. You know what I mean? Just like a little bit of a thing for them to be like, oh, no, I have to hook my leg on the thing and maintain a connection for the purpose of like off balancing my partner, etc., etc. And for me to like reference things is a little easier in the room, more efficient sometimes for me to be like, oh, let's try to do that side triangle thing from when we got to that spot there. Oh, okay, yeah, sweet. That's that position. I remember that one. Sometimes to be like a triangle from this, like, yeah, I'm probably too early on in my personal coaching journey to have a more of a definitive yes or no on that one.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I think that there's benefits to having both, but then sometimes I get right down into, the brain rabbit warren, and by the end of it, I coming out the other side going, yeah, there's no point in saying any of these IP terms, because, because when you're doing this game, we are just looking for, the immobilization to, and I get to that point, and I think, but how are you going to explain that to someone that's coming in? So, yeah, cool. And you mentioned with your bowing, that, from my perspective, I talk about the zone a bit. I'm sure you probably heard me talking about it. I'm sure that would probably help with getting into the zone. Do you have any experiences with, or anything? If you have seen my stuff, the zone, flow states, that sort of thing. Do you have any experiences with that?
Yes and no. I think the bowing is it's an easy start point. It's an easy start for people to be like, okay, class has started. You know what I mean? Like it just sets me up to be able to, okay, get a partner, we're going to do this, X, Y, and Z. Sometimes they're all sitting around talking. It's hard for me to get the attention of the room by going, okay, oi, 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 oi. It's easy to be like, okay, let's line up. Okay, 3, 2, 1, slap it. Like, that's easier for me to do. In terms of flow state, I've listened to a bunch of your stuff, mostly when I'm on the Rogue Echo bike, the assault bike, swaying it out, I'll throw it on. A little bit of flow state. I think the easiest way for me to reference it is I've always had conversations with training partners, especially some black belts, and be kind of like, what? There's times when I know I would be training or rolling or learning something as well. And so I remember having this conversation a few times. Be like, why sometimes when I've come to a class, I'll get shown something and it's like in and then it's gone and it's like in the ether, never to be remembered again. But there's these few key moments where it's like, this thing just sticks and I'm using it literally instantly. And I think that connection is like, okay, well, it's got to be a case of like, what frame of mind am I in? Where am I mentally at that time for it to have gone in and become automatically a part? It's automatically in my toolbox, right? And I think it has to do with that flow state. And then it's also some good black belts. One that one of my close mates, he's the other black belt at our academy. He's got an unbelievable guard. He's a bit of a dad bod, but his guard, it's like a Venus flytrap. He can hit triangles from all over the place and arm locks and weird stuff all the time. And it's always like, how do you do that? And he's like, I'm not doing moves, bro. I just do it. I'm just doing things. I just do it. And it's like he's in that intuitive, that frame of mind where he's not thinking about what he's going to do. He's just in that flow state and it just happens. And so to me, I've told him that. I was like, he was one of the big drivers for me diving headfirst more into this ecological approach, because I think like he's not thinking about which hand do I grip the grip with, which, you know what I mean? Which am I going to get like the collar with my left hand, or do I meant to get it with the right hand? He's just doing movements. He's perceiving the environment and he's moving based on what that perception is. That was like, I think that is where we have to head.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think as soon as I started implementing CLA, I found myself in the zone, in flow state so much more, and it allowed me to like execute things, as you say, like something would just immediately happen, and I'd be able to use it sort of straight away. And even watching the white belts have that same thing. Like you'd teach something 2 weeks ago, and they're implementing it, with no issues, no pauses, none of that. Like, oh, what was I meant to do here? The little man getting in the way and going, what was this? It's just like, I need to do this, and it's done.
Yeah.
I think so. How many would you have? Being that the 300's a fair decent size, and being that it's kind of 50-50, you'd have a fairly large class. What are you looking per class?
Depending on the night, for an all levels class, up to 25 to 30 in a class. Kids classes, 25 to 30. That's pretty regular. Obviously, some nights, Friday night, classically the quietest night of the week, we might be lucky to get 10, or 12. But 25 to 30 is a regular occurrence.
Okay. And so after you do, say, the class as such, Do you free roll?
Yeah.
What's the
So the all levels classes at night. I've been trying to keep them working just through whatever games and whatever situations I put forth them for at least 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
And then at that point, then we'll do some free rolling. I've got like a super match coming up in a few months. So it's like been in a few weeks, relatively heavy focus on just getting rounds in after that.
Mm-hmm.
So quite typically lately, it's just I'll put 10 rounds on the clock. And it's just like start from wherever you want, and we'll go from there. I generally feel like we've done enough work in the spots, in the positions during the actual class portion that I don't feel like they have to go in. Okay, we've been doing pinning from the half guard situation. Go start all your rolls in the half guard. For me, it's like keep it fresh, keep it variable. Like go start wherever you want.
Mm-hmm. So one of the, I suppose, it's not even a criticism. It's actually, I think it's a benefit and a feature, that you're pretty much warm and active the entire class. And I've heard some, and it's random here and there, but I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, you're going to be buggered by the time you get to open mat at the end." And I don't see that anymore. What's your thoughts?
Initially, people were fucked. They were dead. Okay. And then I still probably, I reckon once every 3 weeks, I'll have to give the same speech.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you are going to go hammer and tong 100% during all these games, firstly, you're going to be dead by the time we get to rolling at the end. Secondly, that's not the most optimal environment for learning. I think you're not going to be able to be solution focused when you're in that. You want to try to find there is a bit of a Goldilocks spot in those things. You have to find that, and I do have to remind people sometimes, because it's like if you're just chasing the win, that's not optimal for learning. You're not going to gain new skills, or you're not going to obviously spot affordances, right? But I'm not going to say that in the room. You're not going to see opportunities or things or options if you're focused just on the win. Slow it down a bit, all right? Reduce it a little bit, then you spot those opportunities more than you would if you were just like had the blinders on. I just have to win. I have to win. So that's something that has to be reinforced a fair bit.
Yeah, definitely. I like to look at it like, we're in a lab and we're testing things. So, there's nothing wrong. I've had it once. It was actually one of Alex's classes, and I could see that the white belt that had been paired with me, he was just so scared of doing the wrong thing. And it was like, bro, everything you do is the right thing at this point. No matter what you do, just try it. It's going to be the right thing. I think that's something that I love about this as well, is A, you experiment so much more, and B, because you're failing so much more, you become so accustomed to it that it's instead of coming to a wall and just hitting it, you're bouncing off it, and you're 100%. Just going, fuck yeah, there's something else here. What else can I find? And it's I had Aaron. I don't know, he was around. A mate of mine was around yesterday, and he's sitting there extolling the virtues of it to me, and I'd introduced it to him.
Yeah, how good.
And I love it. And he's saying all the stuff that I've been saying, and it's and I love hearing it come back to me.
Yeah,
because,
how good.
Yeah, so you've got obviously a few of your coaches there that. And your purple belts and your blue belts, and they're all on board. How have you got them involved? How have you?
Look, it was a funny process. That same black belt that I was saying, who's like got a crazy guard, doesn't think about moves. He's always in the flow state. It seems. He's a pretty intellectual guy, and he walked in one night, and this was the first night I actually was going to try it in like an all levels class on a Monday night, which is like always the busiest class for us. 30 odd people on the mat, and he walks in and I'm trying something new, and he's like, "Oh fuck, here we go, you've been reading again, haven't you?" And he took the piss out of me. Right, the class went the way it went, it was fine. 2 weeks later, he comes up to me and he's like, "Okay, look, honestly, I can see the benefit. This is the way it has to be. You need to keep doing what you're doing." And like he's a smart guy, and to get that backing was pretty important. The other coaches, the thing is, like, I understand it probably flies in the face of like a lot of other people, where it's like you can't mix IP and you can't mix CLA or the ecological approach, and I understand that 100%. But I'm not going to force. I've got purple belts and brown belts who've been coaching and training for a very long time. And I'm not coming to them being like, you have to do things the way I'm doing it. Because I think a little bit of variability in the room is okay. Like, it's okay. So I let them kind of do things how they want to do things. But them seeing the benefit and how much more effective it is of their own volition, they are adapting and changing the way that they're coaching to model the way that we're doing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my blue belt and my purple belt, yeah, I'm encouraging them along to do what I'm doing, and they're doing that. But the brown belts and the black belts, they're slowly starting to integrate more aliveness in their coaching, which, like, it speaks for itself. You know what I mean? It speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, I've sort of been throwing up the idea of buying Rob Gray's book for a colour belt promotion. So, you know, like, if I ever, or when I start giving out belts, you know, here's a blue belt, here's how we learn to move. You know, go and read that, and there'll be a test before purple belt. Not going to go that far, but yeah. So, you know, you got the blue, the purples. So you said before that you don't like the mix of the two. How do you approach someone asking you a question? You know, do you try and work through it with them, as in, you know, ecologically and you know, using the actual technique, or do you try and talk them through, or yeah?
And that's probably my biggest area of opportunity now as a coach, like using this new method. Is initially someone would come to me and be like, what do you do here? And my answer would be like, right, like, back to the Pokemon cards. Here is a technique. Here is this. Here is that. Now what I'm trying to be in the habit of just asking them questions, right? It's like, oh, I can't make this. I keep getting swept when I'm in this position. Okay, well, what's happening? Oh, well, I think, like, they're pushing me over here. Okay, well, why do you think that is? And then getting them to answer the questions a little bit more themselves, which is what we want, right? And then it's like, put them in a position to work through that. And then the solution should emerge at some point. If it doesn't emerge, then I'll probably give them a little bit of, like, more information, because it comes back to, for me at least, I am providing them with a product. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I have had instances where I've had members, like, asking me a question, I can't get this thing to work. And I'll be like, okay, well, like, the whole thing, like, why is it not happening? And then we did this process a couple of times, and then he was like, bro, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Which in that case, okay, bro, like, this is what. And then if I do have to show them, then I'm framing things heavily with what I like to do, or an option that works for me in this case is X, Y, or Z. I think it's in this environment where people are paying, you know, good money to come to learn and to spend time here. If it comes down to it, that they're just like, just give me the fucking thing. Okay, sure, here it is, pal. Here's what I like to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's, yeah. I suppose it's such a different sort of with such a big class that you're referring, or you're working with. Do you do any other, like, mixed martial arts there, or are you solely based on
just jiu-jitsu? Yeah, only jiu-jitsu, and only just some things to supplement or help your jiu-jitsu. So we teach we run yoga for BJJ. I don't know if you've heard of that, where me and my wife are both certified in that, so we do a few of those classes a week. We have a strength and conditioning coach who does like a BJJ fit class, which is just some kettlebells, all structured around jiu-jitsu. And then we have a judo coach, a black belt in judo, who teaches judo for BJJ. So it's only things to supplement jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu. That's all you're getting.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So, yeah, I'm trying to sort of think. Is there anything that you know you've picked up? Any areas of, I suppose, research? You know, I spoke with Kabir. He got me on the sort of the culture track. You know, anything like that. I like the zone. Have you looked into other areas of sort of psychological perception? Any kind of research that you've gone, oh, actually, that's something that interests me?
Look, I'm still, like, too obsessed with trying to learn more about the CLA. Yeah, I'm balls deep in the constraints-led approach currently.
What are you reading at the moment?
Literally the Constraints-Led Approach
Yeah.
by Ian Renshaw.
Mm-hmm.
Never highlighted a book more in my entire life.
I said the same thing. It's the first book where I sat down and went, I'm going to need to highlight these because I'm going to have to come back to it. And I haven't done that since high school, and I don't think I did it in high school.
I didn't. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just trying to like understand more. I think it's a process, you know what I mean? And I think it's very easy to get daunted by the process. Trying to have enough knowledge and information that you can, I think, do this properly or do it well enough that the student will learn things. I managed to get to a speech by a well-known sports scientist at a university on the Sunshine Coast last week. He works with I can't remember his name. Actually, let me look it up. I went to that, and he works for Liverpool FC. He works for the English football team. He works for Rangers FC. So he's Dr. Barry. I can't remember. That's pretty rude. But I sat through the hour-long speech. He was mostly just promoting the benefits of sports science in elite sport, which we understand. But then I got to pull him aside afterwards and had a word to him for 20 or so minutes. I just said, in your experience, have you noticed the use of like constraint-led approach as it pertains to like skill acquisition? Have you seen that, et cetera, et cetera? He said it is being used at the highest levels of sport, 100%. But he said, but still the ones with the best information are the scientists. They are still the ones with the best information on it. We're still waiting for the coaches to figure out how to best implement constraints-led approach as it pertains to sports. So he said, for you as a coach at a ground level, you are in the best position because it's still relatively early days for this, and we're still trying to work out the best ways to implement it. So you at the ground level, you should be free to experiment as much as you can to try to find the best ways to implement it. So it's like, feels good, right, to hear that it's being used at the highest levels of sports, but it also feels good to be like, okay, like we're still figuring this out as we go. So I'm going to make mistakes, and trust me, I make a ton, but we're just still trying to figure it all out.
What's your process for your own review? So the reason why I'm asking this, obviously this YouTube channel is kind of putting it all out into the ether, and it was just started to review my own coaching, and I figured some people might get something out of it. It seems like a couple more than some are. But do you sit down and do a coach review? How do you prep, and how do you come out the other side?
I do a lot of prep. My wife will tell you. I spend a lot of time behind the computer or reading. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I'm finding, I think, is the prep side of it. Because I think there's a point where I'm a big get a spreadsheet out, have the week planned, sessions planned, every little piece of the session planned, I'll plan. So I'd come into it, and it used to serve me well because I'd know what technique I was wanting to do, where it was going to flow on from there. But then when I switched to this method, I find that being too prepared hindered how it flowed in the room. So now I'm still trying to find that Goldilocks point of preparation in terms of knowing what I want to do and see, and then being prepared enough that I'm not just like a rudderless ship floating about in the ocean, but not so married to what I want to do that I will just I'll ignore what I see to go to other things, if that makes sense. So now I'm at a point for preparation. Even that 6 week block where I was telling you about 2 weeks guard, 2 weeks pins, 2 weeks submissions, even that I'm kind of falling away from that because I feel like that potentially could be too constrained. I'm getting too married to that thing as well. So now I'm kind of coming into the room with, for example, we're looking at guard passing, and we're going to look at more of a headquarters position where we've got our lead leg on the inside of one knee and we're sitting on their shin kind of thing. That's where my starting point is. And we're just going to, tonight I'm going to kind of I've got a couple of places that I want to focus their attention, but I'll just see how it flows on from there, if that makes sense.
Cool. And do you sit down afterwards and go, here's where I went right and here's where I went wrong?
Yeah, I do. I I don't know how you found it, but well, for me at least, I'm a massive overthinker. Like I'm the Hodger Gracie of overthinking. If I won the lottery, I've said this a million times. If I won the lottery today, you give me 24 hours, I could overthink it enough that I wouldn't pick up the check. You know what I mean? Like I overthink everything. Like that's hard, right? Where we are now, because before you just get a technique shown by another world champion black belt. So like I would have like, yeah, that works because he's doing it. Okay, it's free for me to like, I kind of use it. It works. I have the confidence because, yeah, it's great, right? But now I'm creating situations with games, right? And I think like most people who are in this space, in the jiu-jitsu space, we probably tried some of Greg's games out to start, right? Because it was like, he speaks so confidently. He's so militant in the way he says it that it's like, yeah, that has to work. I've got the confidence to try those games. But now I'm long past using Greg's games. Like that was a long time ago. Now I'm like overthinking everything. Is that have I said too much? Have I not said enough? Have I like focused their attention? Like, am I breaking my 90-second rule when I'm talking to them? All those things come into play. So after every session, yeah, there's a big element of review. And that's one thing that this sports scientist, Dr. Rue, that I can't remember his name is Dr. Barry, but review is a very, very crucial tool here. And he said not only in the immediate term, but in the medium and the long term.
Yes.
So that's something else I think that us as coaches, what tools do we have to implement to help us reflect and review? Obviously one way is competition results, but I don't give a fuck about competition. I'm not a competition school. That's not what I'm here for, essentially. We do okay. We do pretty well, but what other ways are there that I can look at progression, that I can look at review and see if that does work, that doesn't work? And that's probably an area that I'm struggling in a little bit.
Well, the good thing is the Constraints-Led Approach book has a couple of templates at the back.
Yep.
That I initially used. Talking about spreadsheets, I set it up in spreadsheets and started talking through I think the first couple of weeks. I actually never did any of Greg's games. I kind of jumped into it with my own sort of thoughts on it. But the thing that I found was really, really beneficial was doing these templates and reviewing, because it wasn't just reviewing my performance, it was reviewing the class's performance, but through my lens or through the lens of what the coach wanted to see, and that was really cool. I think you're right. It's ever evolving, and the prep thing. I'm with you. Like I overthink the prep, and I overthink and one of the beauties I think of having the everything on YouTube is I just start talking and thinking it through, and while I'm thinking it through, I'm talking, and then I go, oh well, that sounds like nonsense to me, but let's see how it goes. And so some of those have become my best content, or the most viewed, which is weird. But that's because I think what's happening is I'm the insecurities that are going on. People are resonating with that and going, actually, yeah, I feel that. Like,
yeah,
I'm also concerned about this thing, and he's thinking it through, and that sort of thing. So, I'd strongly suggest looking at those, putting down those templates. I don't use them as militantly anymore, but that's all the underlying things, like the 3 good things that I did, the 3 bad things that, the 3 things that I would fix. Those kinds of things are in the back of my mind when whenever I'm reviewing my performance. So, yeah.
It's funny how those things, at least for me now, I can know almost immediately, right? Like you'll put a game out, I'll cue a game and play it, and then one of my other coaches will look at me. We had one, I set them out the other day, that we teach this, we use this method with the kids. Our kids' classes are 4 years old to 8 years old and 8 to 14. We use it amongst all those classes, and I set a game up for the 4 to 8 year olds where it was like one kid starts in the turtle, other kid starts in a front headlock, or just like with their chest on top of their partner's back with their hands joined. And I was like, okay, kid on top, you're just going to try to keep the person on the bottom and try to get to their back. Easy peasy, right? Hallelujah, cool. Person on the bottom, see if you can get your partner's butt to the floor, keep their butt to the floor and get on top. Okay, cool, great. But I something was off and reactions weren't quite happening. Kids on the bottom weren't quite getting where I was hoping they would get to. And I knew that I should have cued just to help these kids put the blocks together. Maybe cue the kid on the bottom. You get to have your hands behind your partner's knees to start. The game started. It looked like absolute nonsense. And one of my coaches looked at me. He's like, "Bro, what do you think about this game?" I was like, "Fuck, bro." I knew it straight away. I miscued this game. But it's like that's a good learning moment for me, right? But as a coach, straight away. I feel like, I fucked this one up completely.
You said something earlier that I wanted to come back to, the 90-second rule. What's that, and where'd that come from?
I can't remember who I heard say it. It might have been Kabir. I'm trying to just, when I'm explaining a game or what we're going to do, try to keep it under 90 seconds. I think if I can't explain it clearly enough in under 90 seconds, then I don't understand it enough to be able to get the information across effectively. Yeah. It's easy as a coach, at least it was for me, to have verbal diarrhea. I thought it was all about what I can tell them. How much information can I give them? Blah, 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 blah. Della, he was good because of this, and it's great because of that. That's how I started. They don't need to know any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. Like, what matters is, like, get a good connection to the leg and then try to off-balance your partner as much as you can. Get up or get under. If I can't explain it clearly in under 90 seconds, then I need to have a look at what I'm talking about. Yeah. Or it's too confusing. There's too many variables. There's the goals are, they're shitty. I've got to realign the goals, or all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
100%. Do you find when you're making some of these games and you're talking about them, that you're starting to realise that they're very similar to each other in that they have very similar goals?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, cool. Well,
that's where the thing is, right? Is we can. That's the model that Jiu Jitsu has been built on. Is like that. You're meant to look at Jiu Jitsu now, and it's like, holy shit! It's such a vast and technical and incredibly nuanced game of like a bazillion techniques and counters to the techniques and counters to the counters. And I need, oh fuck, there's a whole new guard that's just come out. Oh, there's a new guard to counter the new guard of the new guard. And so you're meant to think that way, because what that does is it drives you to buy the next instructional, to pay for the next private, to do all this stuff because you're trying to catch up because you're already behind the 8 ball and you're just going to get further and further behind the 8 ball. But when you start to, that's the thing, you start to understand grappling, there's it's very simple, right? Like it's incredibly simple. And that's why the games, the task focus or the goals, they all start to like look basically very, very similar. I'm just giving you new ways to get to the very, very basic common goals here. And that's why people grow way faster with this method. That's why we've seen our kids, the little 4 to 8 year olds, are doing things that before I could never have gotten them to do in a live environment, in a live round. Now they're doing it naturally because it's a very simple game. You just got to not overcomplicate it. And it's a little bit of, in my opinion, there's a little bit of gatekeeping. You know what I mean? Like, these black belts have been training for a long time. You have to come to me to know the new inverted K guard with a capital K, not a lowercase k, because if you don't know this, you're not going to know this, this, and this, and this. You don't need to gatekeep people out of this stuff. It's very, very simple. Joe Bloggs should be able to walk in off the street, which is what we have now, give him very, very simple task focus, and he should be able to like hang in the room a little bit. That's what we're finding. We're also finding, I think, that one of the major benefits of this, and probably that's what we're finding too, is the ecological approach is excellent for community building and culture building in the room, because you're forcing people, at least I get people to change partners quite a lot. I keep that variability quite high. Sometimes I'll get them to start in groups of 3, or we'll do a lot of flip-flopping and partner changing. You get people to work all together. I think, like, instead of like before you do it and you'd have the black belts training with the black belts, or you know what I mean? Like, people would cluster into little groups of their own. It just happened naturally. But with this constant changing of partners, changing the variables of like who's in the group, what the group's doing, it creates this new learning environment where everyone's kind of working together. They're sharing solutions to problems. Everyone's solution is relatively valid. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Sarah manages to pass my knee when we're doing this game, whatever Sarah did working in that moment, what Sarah's doing is relatively valid, right? We can talk about the solutions. And for me in the room, if I can see people talking about stuff, sharing like solutions, or like, that was good, I liked how you did this, or what this thing you were doing that's working, that's what I'm really searching for. So in terms of like, I'm not necessarily searching for perfect like underhooks or knee cuts. Yeah, I want those things, but I want people communicating, sharing ideas, giving feedback live in the moment. That's the stuff that builds the community and builds the growth.
Yeah, cool. I had an experience. So years ago, I worked at a different. I trained at a different gym, and they had this thing of like, if you weren't a purple belt, you're not allowed to say anything at all ever. And just give me a second. Bear with me.
You're right.
Sorry, bro. The missus started vacuuming out the back. I was like, what the? Sorry, keep going. You were.
No, you were telling me you were training at another gym.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, and he was like, virtually, you have to be purple belt or higher to even talk about technique and all that. And it messed me up for a while. There was, and then I went to another gym and I gave some minor advice to. I was only a blue belt at the time. Gave some minor advice, and the head instructor there, I sort of felt the need to go and say, look, I've just given some advice. I shouldn't have talked out of turn. And he was like, what are you talking about? You've got heaps of experience on that, Well, like, please, if you can help, do so. And that blew my mind, I was like, holy shit. And that comes from that, the black belts gatekeeping, and they think that they're the source. And
the source.
Yeah, and I as soon as one of the reasons why I got into Jiu Jitsu was because it was pressure tested. So it was like you were always going to get a pressure tested sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, we're the source. You got to come through us. Just didn't make sense. So, did you experience any of that? I know that you used to train. You've trained at a few places. Have you experienced that anywhere? Like, and you don't have to obviously put anyone under the bus, but
look, I have, but I think it's 2024. You know what I mean? It's 2024. Those old ways, it doesn't cut it anymore, right? Like, there's too much information available to the general public now, to people who do jiu-jitsu, for that to be the case, for it to be even like relatively believable. I have a coach that I know. His head coach, black belt. They're both black belts, but his head coach is very much of the old model, where it's like, everyone in this room is lucky to train with me. That kind of feeling where it's like, I'm the source of knowledge, etc., etc. And that the academy is not doing so well, right? Like, retention is an issue, and getting people in the door is an issue. And I think there's a correlation there. I've had it, but to be honest, like, most of my learning was self-driven since purple belt. It was all self-driven since purple belt, and I've got no issue saying that. I didn't have a coach try to like direct my learning. I asked, believe me, I fucking asked, but like, I didn't have a coach tell me which way to go. This is the path to get to that. It was like, I did what I did, right? Like, I'd still do the classes, I'd do the technique, but it was like the intention, the information that I brought into the room that I was going to try to work on while I was doing my live rolling, all the live work. That's the stuff that I used to get, not in a Kit Dale sense, but that's the learning that I did. I didn't have a black belt telling me what I had to do or how I had to do it. I just did my thing and served my time, and I made it to the black belt, right? But it's 2024. If you're still doing the things like that, if you've still got some black belt telling you, like, I'm the only one, don't ask questions, then I think you need to have a very good, strong look at what's happening. Question for you, Sam, like, I know you and Alex are running the gym. How's that been received by the higher ups? I know who we're talking about.
So here's the thing.
Trust me, Sam. I know a lot of us. I still talk to people in that franchise group, so I know what's happening.
Yeah. Look, the way I look at it is, I'm running workshops, so I'm no longer running classes. I run basically workshops, and at the moment they're essentially CLA informed open mats. That's the official line, Alex runs the classes. At the moment, he's probably a bit more constrained by the organisation than I would be, mainly because the idea that we're I'm not running classes essentially. So there's a bit going on. Obviously, a little bit more than the viewers will know. But yeah, I mean, look, happy to talk a bit more about that offline. But the we were Alex was already actually on this trek for a bit longer than I am, than I have been. In saying that, though, the sort of I think the intensity kind of flipped because I was running these very small morning classes. I was able to pivot rapidly, and I was just like, "Yep, we're going to do this now." A similar deal to what you're talking about, though. I still had a couple of guys that would take certain classes, so and I just let them do it how they do it. One of them's very much informed on, and he started to do it. So Aaron has started to do them my way, or not my way, but his version of the CLA. Based on, he hasn't really gone into the literature as much, although he's on holidays at the moment, and he said he's going to read it. But he's looked at how my approach has been, and seeing that it's beneficial. He's the one that was here yesterday, going on. This is what's good for me, and this is how it's benefiting, and blah blah blah. I think with Alex, he's having to do a bit of a mixture, and he's he with the kids, he's definitely doing the. I think with kids especially, you still got sort of a formality side of it as well. That's good for parents and teachers. The parents and the kids. The parents see it as part of the discipline that they're going to get out of martial arts. And I think with there's still. I don't see any benefit in the warm-ups anymore. I think with a lot of the guys that I'm training with now, we're a bit older, so it's like, stretch out the stuff that hurts you. If you need to warm something up, every morning I'm in there activating my shoulders, doing all the stuff that the physio's telling me to do. I'm getting older, so I need to do that stuff. Whereas, so like we don't have the bowing as such. People still bowing on the mats, but we do that, and then it's like, all right, we're going to play a game. And we're just straight into. We do the warm up being stand up because that gets the blood pumping and everything sort of up and running. But I think it's a bit different for Alex. I should go to a few more of his classes, but I work full time, do the admin for the business, run do the morning classes, and have 2 kids under 3. So. It's a tough run. So I have been planning on it though.
Is the way Alex teaches classes, is that being monitored?
Not at the moment. I'm sure it will be in the future. It's something that we've definitely got a new head coach. All that kind of stuff. It is there is stuff coming down from on high. With I think my main issue would be that it's coming down from on high with the trying to keep it as cryptic as possible.
I know, yeah.
But there's consultation, but it's a bit like my missus wanted a cat. I said I didn't want a cat, so we compromised and we got a cat.
Yes.
It's like, yes, okay. This is happening anyway. So, look, I don't have too much of an issue at the moment because, as I said, I'm running open mats until that band hammer comes. I think I've got a bit of a 5-year plan going. I've said this before, where we're not going to be living here where I am currently for, we're 3-bedroom townhouse with 2 kids.
Yeah,
definitely going to look to have to grow that. And one of the other questions I was going to ask earlier on was you're in North Lakes. That's correct. There's a bit of development around there.
Heaps.
Heaps. Yeah. Do you think that factors into your growth and that sort of thing?
North Lakes is it's a very, very heavily populated area, but there's a lot of jiu-jitsu here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 gyms within like a 10-minute drive, if that.
Yeah, wow.
There's 2 gyms within a 1-minute drive. So there's plenty of jiu-jitsu around.
We've got obviously the same. We had at one stage, like I think 4 for it as well in our, within a 3-minute drive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's got its own, and if you added in a couple of others within a 10-minute drive, so 5 or 6 within a 10-minute drive. So I think our location is a little bit more transitory than we expected.
Yeah.
We being that it's A, gentrifying, B, we're getting a lot more units coming up, but units, they're not owner-occupiers, so you're not getting your families.
Yeah.
You're getting people that are, students and, 6 to 12. This is only stuff that we've kind of recently
Yeah.
sort of looked at, but I mean, we still got a good location. Like lots of eyes do get on us.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a good way to get off that topic. Just obfuscate the issue a little bit. Yeah. No, I mean, I think for me, my goal is in 5 years' time or 4 years' time now, that where I relocate, I will have my own location. I think main reason being is because Alex, I think, is moving north and I'm going to be moving south. And from what I can see, I'll be moving quite a bit further south. Like,
right.
We've made decent money on this house, but in order to, like, the rest of the fucking city's gone up as well. So, we want to go somewhere where we put down our roots. That's going to be for the kids for 18 years sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in that case, I want to be able to have a location where I can put it. And I think in that time, it's the perfect time to learn as much as I can from yourself, and not just the Jiu Jitsu side of things, but the culture, the marketing and the running and that sort of thing.
That's the biggest thing, Sam. Culture is king, and I don't care who you have as a coach. You could have Andre Galvao coaching you could have Greg Souders coaching your classes, right? Like, it doesn't matter who the coach is. If people don't feel welcome, or they don't want to be there, they don't want to come back, it's not going to mean anything. So that's been our point of difference. That's why we've managed to do relatively well. Is we're not a fighting gym. We're not an MMA gym. You'll never see a punch thrown in our academy. And I'm happy. We've had plenty of people come in where we're like, I don't think this is going to be the place for you. I think if you've gone down the road, Roz is over there. If you've gone over there, like, you know what I mean? Like, Fifth Wave is over there. You go try them. They might have what you need.
Yeah, okay.
Just we've been very fortunate to have a relatively clear message, and that the right people have come in the door. And that's the most important ingredient, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I might... We've been going at this for an hour and 15 minutes, mate, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you said you had a super fight on? I did actually see that. Where's this?
Let's not call it a fight, Sammy. Hey, let's not just grappling, just hugging each other. No fighting.
So you got a super grapple.
Super grapple,
yeah.
Super hug. It's against Pasha Stolia from Southside Training Centre. He's a legend in Queensland, in Australia.
Yeah, I'm good friends with Pasha.
So it's in end of May down the Gold Coast. Full Metal Jiu Jitsu is hosting it at their Battle Royale event. It's a super match.
Yeah, nice.
At the end of the competition, 10-minute round, no gi, all submissions legal. So, look, I haven't competed in 10 years. I'm 40 years old. I've got 4 kids. We've got 2 businesses. What better opportunity for me than to have a match with, like, a legend of jiu-jitsu in Queensland and in Australia.
Yeah.
No pressure on me. There's pressure on Pasha to bust me up. And, probably, but let's just see what happens.
Well, I'm just down the road from the Underwood south side.
Yeah.
So I've trained there a couple of times, and
cool.
Yeah, intend to train there. I know Pasha through the MMA scene. So and we become quite good friends from that. So,
man, he's a legend, and Pasha is a savage.
Yeah.
Like, I called him out. I asked him for a match respectfully.
Oh, really?
It was meant to be 91 kilos. I haven't been 91 kilos in something years. So I said to him, I was like, look, I'd love to have a match against you. All respect, all love. Can we do it at, like, I don't know, 97 kilos? And he immediately replied, "I don't care what the weight is, all love, let's go." He's a savage, right? Like he's a savage, so it's a pretty cool opportunity for me.
Yeah, I had a roll with him, and yeah, he definitely was just playing with me. But
Yeah.
he was humble after, and he's a super good bloke as well. So look, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know that it gets streamed.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck in that. And
Thank you, Sammy.
Yeah, and mate, I'll be keen to come up and have a roll with you at some stage.
Mate, yeah, we'd love to have you, Sam. We'd love to have you up, man. You, Alex, all the guys, we're super open to that. There's no weird nonsense here.
100%. We're the same. We're like, our Saturday open mat is like open to all. Everyone can come in. We want people, and Friday night open mat as well. So we want people to come and join us, and spread the knowledge and learn and all that.
Sammy, come up to a class. Yep. Shit all over my games. That'd be great. We'd love it.
I'll do a review of your classes.
Oh, do it. Yeah, the lols. Yeah. I appreciate it, Sam.
Awesome, Gino. I really appreciate you coming on, mate. And I'll definitely be in touch and speak to you soon.
All right, bud.
Cheers, bro. Bye.